breaking news. An emergency power grid alert has been issued for 14 different states, and we are already seeing blackouts spreading across the country in multiple different states right now. There's over 500,000 people without power currently inside the United States. So let's get into all the details here. You guys can see the map behind me. 14 different states are under this advisory right now. Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, even little parts of Minnesota are under this alert right now. All right, you guys can also see here, there's over 542,000 people that are without power. Currently, we have 220,000 people without power in Hawaii right now. 48,000 in Hawaii County, 17,000 in Maui, 151,000 in Honolulu County, and 3,000 in Kauai County. Alright, so these blackouts are spreading across the country, and Southwest Power Pool is now warning that these could spread to more states. You guys can see here, it says the East Balancing Authority area resource advisory declared effective Sunday, August 16th at 12 p.m. noon until an anticipated end time of Wednesday, August 19th at 8 p.m. Alright, so this is going on until Wednesday. They're warning that resources are being conserved and there could be escalations where people need to conserve their energy. That's actually already happening right now in places like Colorado. Let's listen to this woman here that said she wasn't able to turn her thermostat down below 79 degrees. Let's listen to this really quick.
That was 79, and I wanted to put my daughter to bed, and it had a little warning that said, you are not allowed to lower your thermostat set point because the energy grid in your regional area is stressed. And I took a picture of it, and I posted it on social media, and I was very annoyed because I was thinking, I understand why this is happening, but, the average consumer is just going to see you're not allowed to control your own air conditioner in your own house without a reason other than the energy grid is stressed. And B, there needs to be, especially for sensitive communities, an easier opt-out feature. So I was able to find one, but I think there always needs to be an opt-out feature for infants, for elderly people, for people that have health conditions. It's literally not safe to have a utility not allow you to cool or heat your house.
Alright, so you guys heard that there. She was saying that she wasn't able to turn the temperature below 79 degrees. This was the other day in Colorado due to a heat wave that was hitting Denver and parts of Colorado. You guys can see here, there's extreme heat advisories being issued for these states that are under the power grid alert, like Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana. All these areas are under extreme heat warnings, and the power grid could be strained in this region. They're already conserving resources, and when people all are running their AC at the same time during these heat waves in the middle of the day, it really puts massive strain on the grid. They're also warning that there could be shortfalls in solar and wind as well. You guys can also see 143,000 people in Indiana without power, 31,000 in Pennsylvania, 27,000 in West Virginia, 22,000 in Ohio, 16,000 in Kentucky, 9,000 in Virginia, and 8,000 in Illinois. This is due to extreme thunderstorms and flooding winds that have hit this region, knocked over power lines. They've had to de-energize lines due to flooding of substations, things like that. So mass power outages are already happening throughout the country, and we could see more of these shutoffs in the next 3 days from now until Wednesday. They are warning that things are going to get a lot worse. You guys can see here's the heat risk for the 6-day outlook for this region. That is the main concern. So this is part of Arkansas, which is under the Southwest Power Pool alert, and you guys can see most of the state is either under a major heat warning or extreme heat warning for the next week or so. All right, so the power grid is going to be pushed to its limit. Make sure you guys are prepared and stocked up just in case the power does go out. All right, you guys can see here in Hawaii, they're already dealing with power outages from Hurricane Layla. All right, this is a video posted by the Hawaii Department of Transportation. They're saying both lanes are closed between mile markers 65 and 66 of the Mama Lahoa Highway. All right, so
shopping Ollie's First means saving up to 70% off fancy store prices every.
Extreme flooding is going on. Extreme power outages are happening in Hawaii as well. You guys can see here's another angle from Jordan Hall, and you can see entire roads are just washed away from this flooding. Infrastructure is being destroyed, and this is causing access issues for rescues and for help. All right, they can't even get to people right now. You can see they're getting heavy equipment out to clear out the region because there's so much flooding and so much debris that has been pushed down into these low points. All right, so make sure you're prepared, make sure you're stocked up, have a generator, whether it's a gas generator or a solar generator, whatever you can afford, or even just some battery packs for your phone, to charge your phone up a few times. They have little battery banks that you can charge your phone 3 or 4 times on. All right, just have some type of backup alternative in case the power does go out. All right, and we're losing more and more control over these things. Like this lady in Colorado was not able to turn her thermostat down. Things like that are going to continue. All right, we're going to see more control implemented around electricity and the power grid, and we already see that when there's a fire threat or risk in places like Colorado. Xcel Energy, the same company that wouldn't let this lady turn her AC down, they are the same company that shuts off the power when there's a fire risk, when there's high winds or anything like that. That was happening earlier this year. There was close to 50,000 people in Denver that had their power shut off for days due to red flag warnings and high fire risk to the power lines, all right, when they could just bury the power lines. So we're going to see more things like this, and it's looking more and more attractive to have backup alternatives like solar. All right, so let me know what you guys think down below. I hope you guys are staying safe, staying prepared, staying stocked up, staying ready, just in case. I hope you guys have big blessings for your life and your family, and I hope you have a big old blessed day.
We are back with a Fox News alert. So tomorrow marks the end of that 60-day ceasefire deadline between the U.S. and Iran. Iran's military is now reportedly putting out $30,000 bounties on U.S. soldiers. Meanwhile, Hamas leaders are reportedly telling Jared Kushner that they will demilitarize Gaza as President Trump's Board of Peace tries to salvage peace talks. All right, lots to get to here. Joey, we're going to start with, I guess, the ceasefire I don't know if we can even talk about it in those terms, right? So let's just talk about the current state of where we are with Iran and if peace talks are even on the table anymore, if that even means anything. Is that even meaningful? Now, perhaps in the Gaza situation, there's something that can be done there, probably more of a separate issue, although sometimes interconnected because of Iran's funding of these groups. But if we're talking about what Iran's going to do between now and midterms, we've had several experts on this channel that have said things are probably going to get more violent. There's probably going to be more provocation from Iran, and that's not something that we'd like to see. We don't want to see our service members in danger.
No,
but
of course not.
This could perhaps be the next iteration of what we're doing.
Yeah, I think it's a hurry up and wait game right now, which is something we say in the military a lot, which is like, let's rush to get this deal done, and then it's like it takes a lot longer to implement than it did to get it done. I think that the president wants some sort of economic warfare solution to this. I think that in his mind, if things can calm down enough and gas prices can stable enough, he can wait the Iranians out. I mean, nobody wants to sit there and say, oh man, I got to say uncle before you do. So, I mean, there's that element of just like as a human being, you want to be the one that dictates when this thing is over. And I think Iran believes that November is kind of their finish line, right? If they can get the president to buckle by November or going into November, that's their best chance of surviving this. Is there a fear of a prolonged war? Of course there is, because one major terrorist attack in our country right now, and that's what we have. We're invading that country and we're full bore. So that's kind of the fear, the threat going into any military operation with what is radical Islamic terror, and that's what Iran is. But with all that being said, the blockade seems to be our best strategy. And even the administration said they let some ships out, and depends on where those ships are going, even some of the Iranian ships. So I don't know if the blockade itself is the stranglehold that we want it to be to hurry this up. So all of those tell me this may be a much longer endeavor than any of us want it to be.
Yeah. Jason, you didn't get a chance to comment on this yesterday as we discussed this issue, so I want to give you a chance as well to tell not only us but our audience where you think we stand right now. And is this about a nuclear Iran, or is this now almost entirely about the Strait of Hormuz?
I think for most Americans who maybe don't have a loved one in the military and fighting, for most Americans, it's sort of white static. It's sort of white noise. They've heard this time and time and time and time again. I think they do appreciate that Donald Trump has taken that nuclear option off the table for the Iranians, and we will probably never fully appreciate what it would have been like if we didn't take that option off the table. But it is about the price of gasoline. For most Americans, if the price of a barrel of oil is not down to $65, you're not paying $3 or less for a gallon of gas, they're going to take that out on Republicans. And you can already hear from Congressman Jim McGovern and others who've been around the block, they're just going to pound that on the Republicans, saying, hey, you said you were going to cut the price of gas, you said you were going to drive down inflation, even though it's a lot less than where we were with Joe Biden. There's still, people saw it touching $2 a gallon, and now it's not.
Yeah, it'd be nice if everything would get a little bit more.
It's not within reach of $2 a gallon.
Yeah, no, I think we're a ways from that.
But it really, used to.
Yeah. Well, it's really unfortunate because I remember the President's State of the Union, Lisa, when we were touting gas prices and energy independence, and then unfortunately this is what had to happen, and I think the American people are just looking for perhaps the justification for the pain that they've endured for the last several months. Yesterday you talked about the economic impact on Iran. Can we win this just economically?
I don't know. I mean, Joey would know better than me. I don't think so. But I appreciate the fact that they're trying to implement different pain points to Iran. They're essentially trying to get Iran to say mercy, but Iran doesn't seem anywhere close, at least now, of wanting to say that or feel that the pain of these pressure points are worse than, succumbing to some sort of deal, right? Obviously, this started with the desire to deny their nuclear abilities, and now it seems we're stuck there because of the Strait of Hormuz. Yesterday, I had mentioned some of the pipelines that are getting created or coming online in the Middle East, where whether it's UAE or Saudi Arabia or Iraq trying to find ways to bypass Iran in the Strait of Hormuz. But yeah, I think this is a real challenge for the president of how do we get. I mean, you clearly see why the Middle East is such a tricky place and why we get into these forever wars and long-lasting wars in the Middle East. This originally was estimated to take weeks, and then now how long has it been? Yeah.
Jason, if you don't mind, I'd love to get Jason's take on this because he's the first former member we've had on since this happened. But when you have Turkey, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia create a defense alliance, does the Trump administration see that as a win? Is that a make the region take responsibility for itself, or is that a liability? Hey, there's a NATO player in there with a country like Pakistan that's definitely played both sides.
Well, and you have Pakistan that's got nuclear capabilities,
exactly.
And so that complicates that whole arrangement. But to Lisa's point here, that Red Sea, the pinch point at the north, pinch point at the south, there have been shots fired, things going off there that have not allowed the oil to move. And so I I do think the Iranians look at this and they just want scorched earth for everybody, you know, and they don't want anything to be calm because I don't think they like Donald Trump. They don't want to have. They like the idea of Barack Obama and Joe Biden, where they would send a pallets of cash. That's the America they want. So they just want to bring it through.
Not send them a little button, you know, in the mail. You hit a reset.
And also, one other thing too is like we're dealing with terrorists here, right? I mean, we'd start off the show also talking about Hamas, which Iran funds like 93% of their activities or something like that. So they're one of the same, but that's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with terrorists. We're dealing with religious zealots, these Islamists who they'd rather die fighting for what they believe in than to try to strike a deal with us. So like, you know, when you can't really, how do you reach some sort of rationale in dealing with people like that?
Yeah, it's an enemy that we fought for too long now, and I think the hardest part for this administration, just to bring it back to when you asked the question about nuclear or the Strait, it's hard for the American people to say, thank God they didn't get that nuclear button when we saw Colin Powell tell us all about nukes in the back of a 18-wheeler that never came to fruition.
Right. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News.